Welcome to the comeback season, where we have real conversations about fueling your body, rebuilding strength, and stepping back into the life you were meant to live. Whether you've been caring for kids, aging parents, or just lost sight of your own needs, we see you. And this is your season to rise. Hello, my name is Nichole McLeod with Healthy Mind, Healthy Body. I'm a mindset and fitness coach and the author of I Started on a Tuesday. I know what it feels like to lose yourself in the chaos and still hold on to the hope that something better is coming.
And I'm Christy Kelsey from Christy Counts Macros, nutrition and mindset coach and food freedom advocate. I've worked with lots of women who felt stuck, restricted, and unsure where to even begin. Together, we're bringing you honest conversations, healing truths, and real strategies to help you rise again, physically, mentally, and emotionally, whether you've hit rock bottom or you're just tired of putting yourself last. This space is for you because this is your comeback season and it starts right now.
Welcome back to the comeback season. I'm Nichole, and today we're diving into a topic that lives at the edge of every single great transformation. And that, my friend, is fear and courage. My guest today, Jennie Milton, also known as Adrenajen, the Extreme Courage Kite Coach, is a living embodiment of what it means to face the unknown and find freedom on the other side. She's an elite kite surfer, a former Australian women's champion, and now a speaker and coach who teaches people how to ride the winds of change, both in sports and in life. Jen helps people lean into fear, find power in uncertainty, and transform every storm into a flight path. Her work is raw, adventurous, and full of wisdom about how reinvention begins, not when we feel ready, but when we choose to show up anyway. Jen, thank you for being here. To start off, let's tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how your journey in kite surfing began.
Well, hi, Nichole. Hello, everybody out there listening. I'm so stoked to be here and chat with you. Let's tell some stories.
Woohoo!
So, kite surfing. Boy, I remember that day when I first ever saw a picture of a kite surfer in a magazine, and it just instantly hit me of I've got to try that. I mean, it kind of meshed together some of the sports I'd already been doing. I mean, just to take you back even further, when I was about 2 or 3 years old, my parents started a sports store in Australia. And so my brother and I are some of the luckiest kids on earth to grow up with the ability to be able to try every new sport that came into fashion. And my dad loved to ski in the winter. So wintertime, we were always skiing. In the summertime, he loved to sail. And I remember when we were young, the boats being small, and as my brother and I got bigger, the boats got bigger and bigger until we're sailing out at sea. So my world was always filled with different seasons. And when I saw that picture of a kite surfer, all of a sudden I was like, wow, this is like a cross between sailing and windsurfing and boards like snowboarding. It was a cross between all of those things. And of course, I was always loving being the first kid on the block to do the latest sport. Oh boy, that was a great memory seeing that. But it wasn't so easy back then to figure out how do you learn to kite surf because it was a brand new sport. There were very few schools around, and it actually took me quite a few years to traveled to Hawaii to the only kite school that there was back then. The gear was very dangerous back then as well, and you'd see all the scary stories in the media of people crashing with their kites, and so there was a lot of fear. And but I was smart enough that I knew I needed to go and find good instructors so I could learn safely. But it wasn't an instant thing. It actually took me many years to get proficient at kiteboarding.
That adrenaline that you must get when you kite surf, I would be very interested to try it because I remember my first time snowboarding, and that alone on the bunny hill was scary enough for me. So this episode is all about fear and facing that head on. So let's first talk about that. When did that moment happen where you're like, I am facing this? I have never been as scared as I am today, but I am going to push through that. And now I'm going to coach.
Well, if you check out the pictures on my social media, you're going to see pictures of me skiing big mountains. You're going to see kite surfing in big waves. And you might just think, oh, she's just born fearless, one of those natural sports people. I mean, I do the same thing. But I would love to tell you that I was not born that way. I was not born brave. I was that kid that they called a scaredy cat when I was at school. My mum tells the embarrassing story of me learning to ride a bike, and we lived on this street with houses with kids on both sides, and every day after school, everyone would be riding their bikes and skateboards on the road. And I was the last kid with my training wheels on. I think my dad was a little embarrassed. So one day he came outside and he took off my training wheels and he was hanging onto the back of my seat, pushing me up the road. And I'm going, don't let go, don't let go. I was just terrified of riding a bike. And he finally let go and I figured it out. And I was that kid that even when I was learning to ski, I would cry on the chairlifts because I was so afraid of heights. And I definitely wasn't that kid that was wanting to go fast. That was like a dare that I didn't want to take. But my brother was more closer to that natural sports person, and he and I were always competing. And I think when we have somebody to compete against, we're always pushing each other to go a little bit further. But he was my younger brother, and it was embarrassing that he was normally braver than me, had way more courage, and was better at sports than I was. But it wasn't until he was 9 and I was 11, and he came home from school one day complaining that he had a sore leg, which was pretty normal. He'd just been at football practice all afternoon. And my dad said, brush it off, you'll be right, mate. And my mum felt his leg, and mother's intuition just told her that something wasn't quite right. And we lived quite close to a hospital. So she just drove him down the hospital to get an x-ray. And the next day, we were told something that no kid or family should ever hear. And that was my brother had bone cancer.
Oh.
And his best chance of survival, if any, was to have chemotherapy and also to have his leg amputated.
Oh. And I was sorry, how old was he?
He was 9
Oh, poor boy.
and I was 11.
Oh.
And that was a huge trauma in our family. It was a really tough time. For my brother, he just seemed so brave at the time. Me, I mentally really didn't know how to deal with it. And back in the 80s, there wasn't a lot of support for the siblings like there are today. But my parents, they knew ski instructors that taught people with disabilities. So it didn't take long until my brother was learning to ski on one leg. I remember I was there,
What?
and he still had a bald head, and he's learning to ski with these outriggers. They're like crutches with little skis on the bottom. And he was skiing on one leg, and I took off my ski. I was like, I'm going to ski on one leg with my brother. And we started doing this together. It didn't take long until he was kicking my ass on one leg and I had to go back to 2 skis. But watching my brother during this time was an incredible example of bravery and courage and resilience. And because our family did so many sports, every sport that we did or any new sport that was coming in, we had to figure out how was Michael going to do it on one leg. And we had something, I call it the MacGyver mindset. And that MacGyver mindset is trying to figure out how can we adapt the gear so that Michael can do it. And when we were windsurfing, I remember my dad built him a peg leg out of PVC pipe and a sanding disc. So he had a waterproof leg, and he fell in 100 times, but he eventually got it. And he got really good at windsurfing. And rollerblading was one of my favorites. And I remember teaching my brother to rollerblade. So he gave me his spare crutches, and we're both rollerblading on one leg, using the crutches to push us along. And so you can imagine that this was not, it's not an upbringing that everybody has, but it definitely taught me so many lessons. And it also made me realize that the things that were holding me back, the fears that I had, were unjustified, because I was watching my brother having to do it with so many more fears than I did. And so it really pushed me to believe that anything was possible, and that fear is not necessarily an excuse that we can use when we're learning to do something. We feel it, sure, but then
Yeah.
we need to find that courage to push through. So I'm grateful to my brother
When was
for
that
teaching me.
moment in your adult life later on that you had to reflect back? Like, what was that turning point that all those memories from your childhood came back and you're like, this needs to be something that I show the world how to do, and I'm going to face fear head on. What was that moment for you?
I think that it wasn't necessarily one moment that all of a sudden everything changed and everything clicked. I like to I like to tell people that skiing as a sport was my classroom for courage. Remember, I was the kid crying on the chairlift? Well, how skiing works when you learn to ski, and Nichole, you said you were a skier,
A
right? Or a
snowboarder. I snowboard.
snowboarder?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Not a good
Knuckle
on the
dragger.
skis.
I snowboarded myself for many years, but the cool thing about a ski resort is that you learn on what's called the green runs, and they're designed for beginners.
Mhm.
And you have a lesson, and the runs aren't very steep, but they're still scary when you're learning. And eventually you learn to control your speed with your edges, either a snowplow on skis or sliding the board. And once you learn to control your speed, you're like, okay, this is easy. Let's go up the lift to the blue runs. And suddenly they're steeper, they're harder, and that fear comes back again. And we need to find the courage, and we need to learn how to carve turns in order to control our
Mhm.
speed. And eventually, our courage builds, and we're like, "Oh, this is easy." And somebody challenges us to go up the chairlift all the way to the top to that black run, and all of a sudden, it's like, "Oh my gosh!" The black run, there's moguls, there's steep, and there's people going past you on both sides as fast as they can, and that fear comes back again. And it takes a while, run after run. So that's showing you need practice, you need repetition, but eventually you feel confident on those black runs. And so it's really showing you that things come in stages. When wherever we're learning something new, we need to start off on the green runs, and we'll feel that fear, but then we'll feel that confidence again, and then as we go to the next level, I mean, I love that saying. Have you ever heard that one? There's always a new devil at the next level.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that's good. I
and
haven't heard that, but I'm going to use that. Oh my goodness.
there's a new devil at the next level, because every time we go to a next level, we've got that increased fear again. But the other thing that skiing teaches us is how good it feels
Oh,
when we
no
find the
feeling. Oh,
courage. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I like to say that fear can be the problem, but courage is the solution. And you know what? Confidence is the reward. And
yes.
that feeling, that good feeling you get when you've found that courage and you've done something that scared you yesterday or an hour ago, and you do it and you're like, oh, I did it. It feels so good. And I think that's the feeling we need to focus on, rather than focusing on the very uncomfortable feeling of fear and nervousness, and our bodies are having a natural primal fear response, which is so normal.
It's
And
normal.
that does
Yeah.
it's normal, and it doesn't feel good. It's like, okay, but if I can find some courage and just do it, because is my life really in danger, is the question we need to ask. Now,
Mhm.
if there's a lion chasing us, yes, our life can really be in danger. But if it's something like public speaking, which is apparently one of the
The
biggest
biggest
fears out
fears.
there, right?
Number one.
Standing on a
Yep.
standing on a stage,
Yeah.
and you and I both know that, boy, the adrenaline starts pumping and
Yeah.
we feel that fear, but the feeling afterwards is the one I like to focus on. That's the reward, and it feels so good
Fear
to
is
be
such a
proud
good
of.
teacher. It really is.
So good to be proud of ourselves, and ultimately that is the ultimate, that is the goal, the reward, the gold medal. And it's something that athletes learn to do all the time. We compete at different levels, we ski at different levels, but if you're not into sport, that's okay. You can still treat whatever your goal that you're aiming for, you can think about it in levels, in steps, and that's why they say celebrate your wins.
Absolutely. I used to, and I'm sure there's still a lot of people that look at fear as a weakness. And these days, I look at it as this is just my nervous system signaling that I'm a little uncertain. I don't feel safe because this is, new to me, whatever it is. How do you train your clients through that moment when that fear starts to get a hold of you, but you know that you need to take that step to get past it?
Great question. As I've already mentioned, fear is a natural primal fear response, and it's not a weakness. It's actually, it's part of us. It's like being hungry and we have to eat. If there's something that we haven't done before or something that scares us, it is natural to feel it. And I think it's important to, I say, name your shark. Right? If I was to ask you, what are you afraid of? People hear my Aussie accents and they always go, "Oh, spiders, sharks, snakes," and rightly so. We do have a lot of those. It's really important to name your fear. What
Yeah.
is it, and what is your primal fear response? Is it fight? I know those people that get angry with the
Mhm.
situation. Flight, that's my go-to. I'm
Let's get
that
out of
scaredy
here.
cat. I'm that scaredy cat that wants
We're
to run
gone.
away. And then there's freeze.
Mhm.
People, I mean, we hear it a lot. Have you heard that in business training lately? Everybody's stuck,
Yeah.
right? I'm stuck. I need help getting unstuck. Well, what is stuck? Stuck is frozen. It's fear. There's something holding us back, and we're in that state of freeze. And then there's also the fourth one, which is fawn. And
Gone.
not a lot of people talk about fawn, but boy, that's a hard one as well. But if we can if we can identify what our fear is and name it, mhm, and we can be aware of what is our primal fear response, then we can be aware when this is happening. And if we can ask ourselves that question, what are we really afraid of? Is it threatening our life? And unfortunately, a lot of people go into that primal fear response and get frozen, and they don't move forwards in it. And it's really important to be able to take that next step. So I created the fear formula, which is what I teach my clients. Fear formula. What does fear stand for? I mean, face everything and rise. Or do you know one too, Nichole? What's the other one?
I
Face
don't. I'm
everything.
sorry.
Face everything and rise is a very, very common one. But fear to me, F stands for forecast, right? Just like we're forecasting the weather, if we can be prepared and have an umbrella because we know it's going to rain in the afternoon,
Mhm.
awesome. Well, if we can forecast our fear by naming it and knowing what response we've got, then we can be more prepared. Two, E. E stands for educate ourselves. What can we learn in order to overcome that fear? So when we were skiing, we need to learn how to control our speed by doing a snow plow. But building knowledge really builds our confidence. And then A. A stands for adapt our mindset. We can't move on unless we have a mindset. And what mindset are we going to use? A lot of people talk about, oh, a positive or a negative mindset. I like to get more specific, like a MacGyver mindset or the skydiver's mindset that just says, I'm just going to jump anyway, or the mountain climber or hiker's mindset, which is step by step. And if you're at high altitude, those steps are going to be slow. So thinking about what type of mindset, and come up with a fun mindset that you can relate it back to.
Give it a
And
name.
give it
Give
a
it a
name.
name.
Exactly. And also, if we need to adapt that fear from being a threat,
Yeah.
which is how we're gonna have that primal fear response, to a challenge. I challenge you to speak on the stage. I challenge you to do it. And many of us actually love a challenge. Who loves a challenge out there?
Right.
Right, because when we overcome that challenge, we feel that reward. So gamify it, make it into something that you challenge yourself to do, and then you'll feel so good. And the R stands for repeat. Repeat, repeat,
That's important.
repeat.
Yeah.
It's so important. Courage isn't something that we just have forever. Courage is something we need to build every day.
It
it's
really
it's
is.
something we need to practice. And the more that we practice building that courage, it overflows into other areas of our lives. When I run these women's camps where I teach people to snow kite. Have you heard of snow kiting,
No, but
Nichole?
I want to learn that from you. We
Oh my
talked
gosh,
about that when we first met.
snow kiting is so cool. It's the winter version of kite surfing, and we use a kite with our skis and our snowboards on to tow us over
Oh my
snow-covered
goodness.
fields or frozen lakes with a bit of snow
Oh,
on top. Or it's a way of having so much fun with your skis and snowboard outside of a ski resort without having to hike up the mountain, because we can create speed on the flats using a kite. And it's definitely my favorite sport. I've been doing it for over 20 years, and one of my favorite things to do is to run these women's camps, because it's a very male dominated sport, and I love getting all the girls into it. And so I'll have a dozen women come for a weekend with me, and when they arrive, there's a lot of fear. There's definitely a lot of fear, and the first few things I do is I go over all the safety, so that we can crush those what ifs. What if this happens? Well, we're just going to release the safety. What if there's a big gust of wind? We'll just let go of the bar. What if okay, if
yeah.
we can have these solutions to all of those what if, that starts to build our confidence. But I just love watching these women on day one being so nervous, and I give them a little kite. Step by step, I give them that green kite that doesn't pull too fast, and they're like, oh, wow, I'm flying the kite. Wow, cool. This is great. This isn't so scary. I mean, little kids do it. I teach little kids of 8 and 9 years old to fly these kites. So it's not as scary as we're making it out to be. And then, of course, once their confidence builds, they're like, Jen, I'm not moving. I want to go faster. So I'll give them a bigger kite. I'll take them to that next level, and then they'll start moving out there. And it doesn't take long until they're cruising backwards and forwards. Everybody's cheering and yahooing each other on. So great when you get a bunch of women together, because we really do celebrate each other, and hold each other's hands when we're nervous, and it's so great to watch. But the best part of these camps are when I get the emails afterwards, and they're like, Jen, I came to learn how to snow kite, but I had no idea that when I went home, I would feel so confident. I have more courage. Those things that were scaring me before just aren't. I went skiing at the ski resort, and boy, I was ripping down those black runs, whereas they used to scare me before. Or hey, I made those scary moves in my business that I'd been putting off for so long. Because if we can practice courage over here, it overflows into other areas of our business. And that's why doing a courage challenge is such a great
It,
idea.
it translates into every area of your life. I have known, or noticed is a better word, that anytime that I am petrified of something, there's always a breakthrough on the other side. Always. In every scenario, if you look back in your life, and what I think a lot of people forget is our brains are programmed to predict the future events and feel safe. That is something we will always go to. And if our brains are like that future thing isn't safe, I don't know, it's going to create all these things in your head. So yes, absolutely. What's the worst case scenario that can happen? Get that out of the way and just dive in. Just do it, because when you get that going in your life, every time you face fear, you know how to deal with it so much easier. So much
It's
easier.
it's it's amazing how women, we are born with, it's like an extra sense of survival because we are mothers. We are
Yes.
designed to want to survive. And people can say, oh, women just have more fear. And I don't think it's that. We actually can see the problems. And I'd love to share something with you.
I bet you our husbands would agree with that.
I'd love to share something with you that I learned up in Alaska. So my husband's a heli ski guide, and so every winter I get to spend time up in Alaska. And when I was doing my avalanche training and learning about all the safety that we need to know on the mountain, I was so fascinated to learn that if you have a woman in your group, you are less likely to be caught in an avalanche.
Interesting.
Interesting, huh?
That's
And in
very
fact,
interesting.
the heli ski operations always love to have a female guide in their group. I mean, it's definitely male dominated, but there's some badass women that are also heli ski guides and backcountry guides. And that is actually something they do on purpose because there's less chance of people getting hurt and caught in avalanches.
Hmm.
And that is because having a woman in your group when you are doing your decision making, we're going to point out, we're going to see things that maybe the men didn't see. They see the big mountain, the powder
Let's
snow. Oh my
go.
gosh, this is going to be so exciting. Let's go, go, go.
Yeah.
And the
And then
woman
the
is going
mothers
to
are like,
say,
hold on.
they call that the human factor, right? We can get
Yeah.
overexcited. I do that all the time. If you can't tell, I get very excited about things. Um, but if we can be observant and actually see and have the confidence in that group of men to say, hey, have you guys seen that mountain over there actually had an avalanche? Now, I know we're not skiing that, but it's on the same aspect as this one we want to see. And they're like, oh, I didn't. I was focused on the mountain I wanted to see. And I might say, hey, did you guys look at the weather forecast? It's a lot warmer today than it was yesterday. And they're like, oh, I didn't notice. I was just excited. It was a blue, sunny day. But having rapid warming also affects the snow surface, which can create avalanches. And someone like me, because I'm the kite flyer, I'm constantly forecasting wind. And I might come in and say, hey, did you guys realize that we had strong winds yesterday during the storm? And so there's wind loading on this aspect. We might be better off skiing that side of the mountain instead for safety. So it's amazing how women just have that extra sense of survival that we're going to check out all of the problems, and we need to have solutions to all of those problems and solutions to those fears so that we can then be confident that we're making the right decision to do it.
It's interesting. Fear, I find personally, and what I'm learning with the somatic coaching and how we, can coach people through when it's debilitating them in life, comes and stems from something that happened to us in our early years, formative years. And it could be something we don't even really remember, but as we know, the body never forgets, the mind never forgets. So when we're in the midst of feeling that we're reinventing ourselves so that we approach fear differently, sometimes it's not even having to reinvent yourself. It's just digging deep into what you were created to do before that fear came into your life. So acknowledging it as a trigger for something and being more curious about it. Why am I petrified to look over this cliff? Why does this scare me in that way? So let's talk about that. And reinvention isn't about necessarily changing who you are, but it's kind of like digging deep into who you've always been and what you've been meant to do. And really, that's when opportunities are missed, when we let the fear take over, right? So let's talk about that.
Such an interesting subject and so true. And we all have those situations from our past, especially when we're little
Mhm.
kids. I've mentioned a few of mine.
Yeah.
I was such a scaredy cat. So in some instances, I actually feel more fear than other people do because of some of those scary things that happened to me as a child. But it doesn't mean that I'm not going to do something. I feel the fear and I do it anyway because I want the rewards. And I think that's really important. People are waiting for that fear to go away
It's
in
never going to
order
go
for them
away, folks.
to take the next step.
Never.
And it's never going to go away. It's
No.
something that we have to be okay feeling and
Mhm.
and realize that okay, I'm feeling fear. And one of the other things that happens with fear is adrenaline kicks in.
Mhm.
And I mean, they call me Adrenajen because I have been into adrenaline-based sports all of my life. And adrenaline is something we don't talk about very often, but it's a natural hormone that is inside us that gets activated when fear turns up. It's what gives you that energy to get angry and fight. It gives you that energy to run away if there's a wild animal chasing you. And so if we can be aware of that adrenaline in our system and realize that adrenaline's actually a superpower, right? It is our superpower that makes us more observant. It gives us extra strength. I mean, there's proven statistics that show, you'll know this with your fitness, Nichole, that when adrenaline kicks in, we are stronger. We
We
are
are.
able to do things that we thought we couldn't do. So if we can feel the fear, go, oh, very uncomfortable, don't like this, and then feel the adrenaline and go, oh, okay, that's adrenaline. That's actually going to help me do the thing that I want to, and trust that the adrenaline is going to take you to that next step of courage. And courage comes as you take the step. It doesn't necessarily come before you take the step. It's I remember when I was on a big mountain in Alaska. It was my first ever heli ski run, and I was so excited. And we got up there, and the helicopter takes off, and it was like I was in a movie, looking at all these mountains around. And then Jerry, the guide, says, "Okay, everybody, put your gear on." And instantly, my whole world came down to this. Oh my gosh, be careful what you wish for because it might just happen. And all of a sudden, the excitement turned into being so scared, so much fear. I was all those what ifs. What if I'm caught in an avalanche? What if I crash? What if I need a rescue? And I'm trying to get my snowboard on at the time, and I'm moving closer to the edge, and I was so terrified, but I couldn't run away. The helicopter had gone. I'm on top of a mountain. There is no
Then
running
you'd be in real
away.
trouble.
And sometimes we need to, they say, burn the boat. This is like the same situation as burn the boat. Don't give yourself an option to pull out, to run away. And this was one of those situations. And so I'm terrified again. And then I hear Jerry on the radio. Okay, Jen, your turn. And I move
Ooh.
close to the edge and I look over. Now I still don't have courage. I'm pure fear at this point in time. But the really great thing that he did
Push
is
you?
that he pushed me, no.
I'm joking.
That he's already down the bottom of the mountain. That's why he's calling me on the radio. And he counts me in. He says, okay, Jen, your turn. Three, two, one.
Go.
So I look down. Go. And I've got people behind me. So there was no time for hesitation. I had to go, and I remember just taking a couple of deep breaths, and I dropped in. And those first few turns were just so cautious and very careful. And there's snow flying over my head, and I mean my adrenaline was pumping so hard. And then my snowboard must have been too small. It was designed for Australia, not for big mountains in Alaska. And I went over the handlebars and I started tumbling. This is like my worst case scenario coming to life, and I didn't know what was going to happen next. I'm tumbling, and the snow was soft, so this is okay. All of a sudden, thank you, universe, somehow I ended up back on my feet.
Oh,
Right,
that must have been epic.
the rotation stopped, and I'm just riding. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what just happened, but I kept riding, and I got down the bottom, and all the guys down the bottom are like, yeah, Jen. I mean, maybe they thought it was some Australian trick, or I'd done it on purpose, but when I got down to the bottom, I just burst into tears. The emotions were just overwhelming, and they weren't tears of fear or that I'd hurt myself or anything like that. They were tears of joy, tears of being so proud of myself that I had been so scared. I'd done it. I'd crashed. So worst case scenario, it had all turned out okay. And here I was at the bottom, just like, oh yeah.
There's no better feeling, is there? Oh,
Oh my gosh, it was incredible, but I realized right then that the courage doesn't come beforehand. It comes as soon as you drop in, as soon as you
has to
take
come with
those
action. It's the
those
only way
steps.
through it.
And fear is something we all face. It's something we all fear, every
Mhm.
single one of us. But courage is a choice.
It
And if
really is.
we can be confident that we can do this,
You said something
then
there that is really my hack when it comes to things in life now that I'm scared to do. And honestly, I've changed a lot in my life in the last few years, and fear is just part of the my daily rhythm and how I roll. But the counting down. I know Mel Robbins wrote a book on that. And oh my goodness, like the counting down really works. Whatever you are scared and you're like, I can't do this, you just count down and you just go, or you just do the thing, whatever that is. I don't know the psychology for that. I probably should before I start talking about it on a podcast, but all I can tell you is that it does work like beautifully.
it so does. And Mel Robbins has her 5 second rule, and the idea is that start counting down and move, take some action before you get to zero. And it's the same with the 3 2 1. My keynote when I'm speaking on the stage is called Ready, Mindset, Go. And it really comes from runners when they're at the start line and they're ready to race. They say ready, set, go. And we've all heard that. Now, ready means that we've made a decision, we've made a commitment. We're gonna race, we're gonna run. I'm set my goal. I want to start that business. I want to speak on that stage. We're ready. Set or mindset is where we breathe, we focus, we visualize on the outcome. Athletes do a lot of visualization. We've already seen ourselves running across the finish line. I've seen myself ski that big mountain in my mind many times over before we actually do it. That is the mindset. And then go. That's where we take action. That's where the adrenaline kicks in. We get the courage and we take action. And so having that countdown, whether it's 3 2 1, ready, mindset, go, countdown from 5, we can use that in everything we do. 3 2, press send on that scary email, go.
But you have
Right.
to believe this. You have to believe it's possible. And I've talked about this a few times on a few different episodes. If you don't believe it's possible and you tell yourself it's not possible, you might not have as good of an outcome. But if you believe in your heart, that mindset before the go just looks so much different.
It really
Yeah.
does, and that's why visualizing ourselves doing it,
Yeah.
seeing other people that really have the same skills that we do, right? If we see them doing it, that's a great example. That's why we can be inspired by somebody who has done it before us, and realize that we can do it too. If we can just overcome that fear and find the courage, we can
So
do it
true.
too.
So when you're reinventing your mindset towards fear, it takes so much more than willpower. It's mental, it's physical, it's emotional. So I want to talk about how you coach people to practice being more courageous, not just being an idea, but how do you teach courage, my friend?
We teach it step by step. And it really is. I love to get people to do courage challenges, as I mentioned. So, what's one thing that scares you that you could go out and actually do? Some maybe it's riding on a roller coaster, right? Or your kid's going, oh no, I don't do that. Well, go and ride that roller coaster with your kid. I was speaking with a lady the other day, and I was helping her overcome this fear that she had of going in the ocean. She had a huge fear of going in the oceans. I'm like, oh, it's sharks, isn't it? And she's like, actually, Jen, it's not sharks. It's
Seaweed, I don't
jelly.
like it on my legs.
Right, it was jellyfish. And
Okay,
so just like you mentioned before, she'd had a situation when she was younger where she'd gone to the beach and there were jellyfish all over the sand because the tide had gone out, and she saw somebody that had gone out swimming and they got stung by a jellyfish and they were crying. So she has this huge fear of jellyfish being out there. And she said to me, Jen, I've got a daughter now, and she wants to go to the beach, and I don't want to pass on my fear to her. How can I find the courage to take my daughter to the beach? And so we used that fear formula. I said, okay, well, let's do some forecasting. When do you want to go to the beach? You've already named your fear. When do you want to do it? She's like, well, on the weekend, on Saturday. Okay, Saturday, what could we do to forecast whether there is going to be any jellyfish or not? How could we get that information? And I'm like, well, you could ring the Coast Guard or you could ring the life-saving department and ask them. Just ring them up and say, hey, have there been any jellyfish out there lately? And if they tell you no, we haven't seen any jellyfish, there's no jellyfish, how are you going to feel?
much better.
Much better, because you've actually gotten some knowledge. It's not just imagining that they're always out there. You've got some knowledge that no, there's no jellyfish out there. And so she gained that knowledge, which gave her more confidence. And then her mindset, I said, okay, let's work on your mindset. You've got this fear of not going to the beach, and you can just avoid the beach if you want to. You've been doing that most of your life.
Yeah.
Or what would happen if you went to the beach and you saw your daughter running up and down the beach, getting chased by the little waves, giggling, splashing around? How would you feel? She's like, oh, I would love to see her so happy, playing in the waves, having a good time at the beach. And I said, okay, well, let's focus on that, because that is definitely an outcome that is totally possible. And then repeat. If you have a good time, maybe go again on Sunday. Let's go to the beach again. Do it multiple times until you're feeling comfortable. 2 days later, she sends me a message and a photograph and a video
Wow.
of her daughter running up and down in the waves, just like we'd visualized and mentioned and manifested. She said, Jen, it was incredible. I absolutely loved it. And I wasn't worried about the jellyfish because the lifesavers had told me there weren't any. And it was an incredible situation. She'd found that courage. So that's how we used that fear formula in that specific situation for
It's
her.
not always easy though, because let's be honest, life is not one road straight ahead. We have our mountains, our valleys, our ups and our downs. So let's talk about navigating courage and fear when we're going through those hard seasons and setbacks in life, because they're all going to show up at some point.
Definitely. And sometimes if she'd rung the lifesaver and he'd said, oh yeah, we've got some jellyfish at the moment. Okay, I'm not taking my daughter to the beach this day. Sometimes we have to say no, we have to turn back. And if we find ourselves going into that survival mode and running away or freezing, going, okay, This is our starting point. This is the start line. Fear is the starting point, and that's when we know that we can move forward from there. But we can't necessarily do it every day, every second, and that's why I say let's forecast it. Let's do some forecasting of when is the best time to do it. And I mean, it's happened to me so many times. I wanted to learn how to kite surf so badly back in the day, and I remember traveling all the way to the Dominican Republic to have lessons, and we got there and there was no wind.
Mm.
And
You built up the hype and you're like,
ah, and it just didn't happen. And I think sports, and especially sports that include weather like wind and snow, I'm sure you've wanted to go snowboarding sometimes, and it has been terrible
Yes.
conditions. I've had people turn up that would have wanted to go snow kiting with me, and it's been a bluebird sunny day. We've got perfect wind, but the snow surface had a melt freeze, and so it was icy, and it was hard, and if they had fallen over on that ice, they could have hurt themselves. So the chance of injury was a lot higher, and I had to say, you know what, today's not our day. Let's go and do something different. Choose having a backup plan. And I think that's what's really important, is having a backup plan, and loving plan B, falling in love with not just plan A and having that as the only thing you're going to do, but have a plan B and enjoy that too, and say, oh, okay, that's not so bad. I mean, this season has been my comeback season, Nichole, because last year I ended up having 3 brain surgeries to fix
Oh, wow.
aneurysms in my brain. And so, as you can imagine, my life changed a lot. All of a sudden, I can't do my sports. I didn't even know if I'd ever be able to do my sports again. I was grieving my life. I was grieving my identity. I mean, how can I still be Adrenajen if I haven't got that adrenaline pumping through my veins? And it was a really hard time for me. And I see people in the brain aneurysms groups so depressed, so having such a hard time, because they are just grieving their life as they knew it. For me, I had to create a mindset, a comeback mindset. And I call it, when you have a setback, after the setback comes the layback. And the layback was very hard for me. I don't like relaxing and doing nothing. I always feel like I can just
I hear you.
work my way out of anything.
Oh,
Go. I've already mentioned that. But the layback was really important, and that's the time when we have to let our bodies heal, let our minds heal if you're going through those things. And so for those people who are wanting to overcome the fear and they can't, just maybe you just need a little bit more layback time and a bit more focus and breathe, to calm ourselves when it becomes too much. After the layback is the comeback. And that's where you start doing PT if you're injured, and you start building your strength back. You start working on your mindset. You start doing some incredible work with a coach that can help you talk about it and make improvements. That's the comeback. And for me, in my comeback stage, my husband, he likes to kite surf too, and he wasn't going to give up kite surfing just because I had to, because of my brain surgery. And either I could have let him go on his own and sat at home depressed because I didn't get to do it, or I could figure out a plan B. And my plan B was to get myself a little stunt kite, a kite that I could fly just standing on the beach, and it didn't pull me I mean, the kites that little kids can fly. And so I went down to the beach, and my husband's kite surfing in the waves, and I was flying a kite on the beach. And just flying that kite brought me so much joy. I was still connected with Mother Nature and the wind. I was still building my kite skills, that in the hope that one day I might be able to go back out there and kite surf too. And I set myself the challenge to learn all these tricks that you can do with this trainer kite. So that's just an example of how we can find a plan B. We can pivot our passion slightly to adapt to what we can do. Just like my brother had to adapt having one leg, I had to adapt being in a fragile state after brain surgeries. And then guess what? After the comeback is the give back. And that give back season is when we actually get to share the lessons we've learned. We get to help other people go through them. And you asked me, how did I get to that point where I was helping other people overcome their fears and finding courage? And that's how I got there, was making sure I had my comeback. We can't speak from the wound. We have to speak from the scars. And I made the decision when I was in ICU after the brain surgery. Tony Robbins asks, is there more knowledge in a library or a graveyard? And the truth is, there's more knowledge in the graveyard because people take it with them. And I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to make sure that I shared these stories with people, that I gave stories and spoke on stages to give people hope and resilience and bravery, so that they could find the courage to achieve their goals. And in the past 12 months, I've written 2 children's books. I'm so proud of my children's
Oh,
books.
that's awesome.
One of them called
Congratulations.
Gail and the Red Kite of Courage. And it tells my story of my childhood, when I was very depressed after my brother got cancer, and I found joy flying that kite. And so that was my same solution that I did after my brain surgery. I just had to fly a kite. And in ICU, my husband came and gave me a kiss on the cheek, and he handed me a kite. It was made out of tissue paper and
Aw.
toothpicks, and I flew that kite over my head in ICU in the hospital bed, and it gave me joy, and it made me realize I'm still here. I still have purpose. It might look different. It might be a smaller kite, but I can still find joy, and I can still share all these incredible experiences that I've had in my life with other people.
You know, you said a few things there that really stood out to me. The first one is giving yourself grace in the season that you're in and adapting to what it looks like. We have this idea in our heads that everything, we have to show up the same every single time. And it's usually when we have that mindset that things don't go according to plan. So sometimes sometimes it's always important to understand where you're at, what season you're in, and giving yourself grace through that. The second thing that came to mind was sometimes when we just let go and just jump in there to do it, it just makes things so much easier. And it actually made me chuckle because when I started snowboarding, it was in my 30s. My boys were 5 and 7-ish. And I had tried to go beforehand myself because I didn't snowboard. The reason I chose snowboarding over skiing is because I'm cheap and I had a snowboard that was given to me by a sibling. So I'm like, I guess I'm snowboarding. So here it is. So I tried a few times and it just did not go very well. It was, yeah, very difficult, especially learning in your 30s. You know what I'm talking about. I did have a butt pad. But then when my boys, they picked it up so quickly. Like I started and then they just did it. But when I actually got to the point where I could go down the mountain was when they were way ahead of me and that mummy instinct kicked in. And I didn't want my 5 and 7-year-old going down that mountain. So I just did it. I didn't overthink it. It wasn't something, it literally, I let the fear aside and let that instinct kick in. So sometimes we just need to remember that that instinct is in you. We were all created with that inside of us. And sometimes you just gotta have to let that fear sit with you, fine, but just not let it take over. And the third thing is the influence. It is so important that I have been knocked on my face in the last 5 years, and the Nichole that was full of piss and vinegar, always known as the Energizer Bunny, just lost all of her energy and just took a turn. But it was the moment that I realized, okay, fine, this thing happened to me, but now what am I going to do with it? How am I going to give back to this world and teach other people what I've gone through and help them through their journey? So I know we're going a little longer than I thought, but one more thing here. Tell us, how do you coach people through that transition to just let go at the end? You said to break it down into steps, but what is that one piece of advice that you give your clients to just do it?
Let's take 3 deep breaths. 3 deep breaths and calm ourselves first. And then 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah.
Let's just go and go with the flow. Go with the flow. There's nothing better than being in a state of flow, and as being in a state of flow is when we don't quite know what's going to happen.
And we don't have to. That's
But
the
we
thing.
just
We have this in our
we
head. We
just
have
do
to
it.
remember what's going to happen, but
Yeah, we just do it anyway. And most of the time, what that thing that happens is actually incredible. It's fantastic. And no matter what, if we do take action, we're going to be proud of ourselves for taking that action. And I think that is the feeling that we need to crave and we need to aim for.
And that's when the courage starts, is when you take action and you succeed. And every single time you succeed and you follow through on what you said you were going to do, it gets easier every single time. Oh, Jen, you've been awesome, full of energy. That was awesome. Tell the listeners how they're going to get a hold of you. And if they want to work with you, where can they find you?
Well, thank you. That was so much fun, Nichole. We could talk all day
long.
All day long about this, and I hope I get the chance to do this again. But for you guys out in the audience, I hope you enjoyed listening to our conversation today. And if you would like to work with me, if you'd like me to teach you how to snow kite or kite surf, please reach out. I've got a website, adrenajen.com, where you can book to come and fly kites with me. I would love to share my lessons with you. If you'd like to see all my pictures on social media, you can find me at Adrenajen on Instagram, Adrenajen on Facebook as well. I've got a YouTube channel, Adrenajen. So that's all you need to remember, is like adrenaline, Jennie, Adrenajen, and you'll find me. Please reach out and tell me your biggest takeaway from our conversation together. I'd love to hear something that resonated with you and something that you can take away and use to achieve your goals.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you so much.
Great. So I'm going to put all your info is going to be in the show notes too. So anybody listening here, if you didn't have a pen and paper, just head on over to the show notes and all of Jen's contact info will be in there. But thank you for showing us that courage isn't only at the high moments in life. It's built in those quiet choices that no one ever sees. And to everyone listening, remember, fear is not a stop sign. It's a signal that you're on the edge of growth. Whether you're rebuilding your life, your health, or your confidence, the same wind that feels like resistance can always be the force that helps you rise. Thank you so much, my friends. Until next time, regulate your mind, strengthen your body, and let your comeback begin with courage. Bye for now, my friends. Thank you for joining us on the comeback season. Please remember, the conversations we share here are for informational and motivational purposes only. We are not licensed medical professionals, and this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or replace guidance from your doctor or your healthcare provider. Always consult your healthcare team before making changes to your nutrition, your fitness, or your mental health routines. Your health and well-being comes first, and we want you to move forward safely with the right support for your journey.